You were the guy, and I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
You and Casey spelled out the word D-U-N done. D-U-N done. Both of you do. And we can find the video if we have to. Maybe. But you guys said D-U-N done.
I did.
And what happened last night?
I did. I'm very pleasantly surprised. There's been a couple games this year already where the team that I root for shocked the world and won in one of the best games I've seen. The Reds did it earlier against the Braves and on that Friday night at Great American Ballpark. And now you laugh. That was one of the best games ever. And now you see this last night. I predicted I said it in joke yesterday that the Jaguars win by 80, but I thought the Jaguars would take care of business here. I thought we wouldn't score any points. Our defense would look terrible, and they kind of did. But I did not think that Jake Browning had it in him. I was completely wrong. I was completely shocked at what I saw last night. The dude looked good. The dude looked damn good, and I've never been more – Jake Browning, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for the mean things I've said about you. You are a legit quarterback, and I was wrong. Last night was the most fun I've had watching a Bengals game since I guess it would be since the Bills game in the playoffs. He looked better last night than Burrow's looked all season long. He looked significantly better last night than Burrow has looked at any point during this season.
I agree with you 100%. I said the same thing watching the game last night. He is playing better tonight than any game Burrow had played in. And look, nobody's saying you should take Burrow's job. So let's just make sure you understand that. I don't want to speak for you. I don't think you're saying that.
I'm not saying that.
But he looked fantastic.
He did. And outside, and I'll say this, I've been very hard on Zach Taylor over the past several weeks. Zach Taylor knew what he was doing, at least appeared to look like he knew what he was doing last night. Outside of the very worst play call in the history of sports.
Two of them.
Outside of those two play calls, which I'd argue, again, in the history of organized sports, you can't find two worse play calls than that.
Well, maybe the shovel pass to
maybe the shovel pass is third.
Who was that dude?
Outside of
Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
Hadn't touched the ball all year. Never mind. We digress.
Outside of those two plays, outside of the Tyler Boyd thrown across his body over the middle of the field straight to a Jaguar, Zach Taylor drew up a perfect game plan yesterday. It was absolutely phenomenal. I was at a friend's house. We were celebrating all night long. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. Good for the Bengals. Good for the team. Good for the city. Good for everybody.
Listen, Thom, on the show yesterday, you make the Obama joke about hope. That's what I was talking about yesterday. I just wanted to see something from the Cincinnati Bengals to give me a reason to sit in a chair and tune in for the last 6 weeks of the season and be excited every time that they win. And they did exactly that. All the things that we asked for the Cincinnati Bengals last week, they did this week. We asked them to run the ball more. They did that. We asked Chase Brown to be a part of the run game. They did that. And if we're going to sit up here and talk bad about Zach Taylor, as we have in past when he deserves it, then he deserves all the credit for what happened last night too. Like he schemed a game to get Jake Browning 350 yards and score 30-plus points on a playoff roster in the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he gets credit there. Jake Browning looked incredible. He really did. The fact that they had enough confidence in him to kind of get him moving early with the passes behind the line, all the screen plays. They ran like 20 screen plays yesterday. But then start passing it downfield. And when they did pass downfield, he looked really good. I think they 2 drops on top of the 5 incompletions. It was one of the most fun games I've watched from the Cincinnati Bengals, as he said, in my entire fandom. It's reminiscent of the Ryan Finley game against the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple years ago, backup quarterback against a really good roster. It's reminiscent of a dominating performance of the offense that we've seen from the Bengals against the 49ers earlier this year, that we saw against the Bills. It was all around just exactly what you needed for the city to kind of jolt back the heartbeat that is Cincinnati Bengal fandom, just to give them a little bit of hope going forward. I don't know where we go from here as fans. I don't know where we go as a team, but it certainly gave a little bit of a beat towards the Hearts.
Reed called for hope. All Reed said yesterday on the show was just give us hope. Just give me a little bit of hope. And they've brought myself, and Casey's about to speak here, but I imagine they brought him all the way back as well.
Somebody else on this show, and I don't want to hurt my arm patting myself on the back, said the Bengals would win last night.
You did.
Trace?
You did, Thom.
Trace said that?
No, Thom.
He might have.
Thom straight up
Somebody said they were going to win.
Nobody's.
I'm just thrilled they they showed up. They looked like a football team last night. A football team that wanted to compete. A football team that wasn't going to back down. A playoff team, even that first series of the game. I loved it when Taylor went on 4th down at midfield. Yeah. Why not? Why not? You're 5-6. You're a 10-point dog on the road. You got a backup quarterback in the game. You got a defense that couldn't stop Mount Washington Pee-wee. Why not? I loved it. They didn't get it. Jacksonville goes down the field, scores a touchdown. You're going, oh, boy, here we go again. Lawrence is slinging it all over the place. But they regroup. They hold it together. And I'm with you, Reed, 100%. Nobody gets on Zach Taylor more than me, and I did during the game last night. I don't know why sometimes. And he's not alone. If you watch every team like we watch the Bengals, if you root for the Chiefs or you root for the Bills, doesn't matter. If you watch every play, you're sooner or later going to have a problem with the play caller. Every town does. Doesn't matter who it is. The 2 plays with the wide receivers throwing the ball, it was just straight insanity. I mean, the 3 plays prior to the first one, if you remember, they had run the ball for like 11. They threw a screen for like 12. They throw a slant for like 9. And now on 1st and 10, you're going to get cute and have Chase throw the ball. Then you back yourself up against the chains and end of drive. And you're sitting there, what are we doing? And then in the second half, again, you got this thing rolling. Your quarterback's playing great. You're starting the second half. You just stopped them on their first drive of the second half. And you're asking Tyler Boyd to throw a pass and it backed up inside his... Tyler Boyd? Browning was 32 for 37 for 354. You mentioned a couple of drops, right? 32 drops. Of 37. They asked Chase and they asked Boyd to throw the ball last night. They were 1 for 2 for -7 yards and an interception. What are we doing here? That's the only quarrel I have with last night. What are we doing?
I can't defend the 2 trick plays, but I always do talk about when people complain about play call, quote unquote, like what's this play call? Why are we doing this? That it all just matters if it succeeds or not. I mean, if one of those passes goes for 50 yards, I mean, Zach Taylor's the smartest guy that's ever coached a football game.
That's right. And Aikman said that, but they also followed it up with, Aikman said exactly that. If it works, you look like the genius.
Right.
But then Aikman said, but when it doesn't, and under these circumstances, it is not good. Not good. And I always say, well, if, woulda, coulda, shoulda. If a toad had wings, he wouldn't bump his ass. Right?
100%.
Okay.
I don't know if I get that
what's your state of, get that, write that down.
I won't be long. I just think that...
Take your time. We have 2 hours.
Listen,
we have
Salas,
no guests today.
I'm a Salas kind of guy. I think that if you watch that game last night, I don't know how much of that was really truly a fluke, to be honest. I think you have a smart quarterback that's been in a system.
Yep.
And I believe wholeheartedly, and this is what I've said time and time again, and maybe it's just because, and again, I go back to what I've watched. I've watched football for a long time for 2 guys. I watched Aaron Rodgers play a long, long time, and I fortunately finally got over the mountaintop as a Georgia football fan with who? I've watched Matt Stafford come through. I've watched 5-star after 5-star after 5-star come through Georgia football and never be able to get it done. And who got it done? A guy named Stetson Bennett. And what did he do? Elite. He was better than anybody at 2 things. 1, knowing the offense, being prepared, knowing how to check into certain things and get yourself lined up in the right spot, and then just making routine throws. He never made unbelievable throws that made you think, oh my God, this guy might be the next Peyton Manning, or he might be John Elway. But what he did do was he delivered the ball on time, and he knew what he was doing. He had a plan. And that's what Jake Browning had last night. I didn't watch that game and think Jake Browning was like unbelievable in regards to talent, but he knew what his plan was. He knew, hey, I got one-on-one coverage on an out route over here against T. Higgins, against this guy. I'm throwing him the damn ball. And he delivered on time. And it was that simple to me, Tom. And the second, like the solace part is, not only did I think it was a fluke, I don't think the Bengals really executed to where it was like, oh my God, what happened? Like they didn't go for it on 4th down 5 different times and get it all 5 times. Think about the opportunity where they made a horrific turnover, right, in the red zone, as you mentioned, and then they followed that up by, and I'm not trying to kill Dax Hill, but like you can't not intercept that ball.
Yeah,
that's an interception. What has to be 10 times out of 10 in the NFL. And not only did he not intercept it. He allowed the guy to catch it for a touchdown.
Yeah. Minimum,
Like,
you got to knock it down.
A 14-point swing, if you want to think of it that way, to a certain extent. So, with all that being said, you go on the road, you play a Jacksonville team that's 8-3, and you could argue that you really didn't play perfectly. And you gave the other team an opportunity to get back in a game when realistically you didn't need to, and you still won. You still found a way to win. And this is the crazy part. If you give me the Bengals defense from last year, and you just said, hey, Jake Browning, you don't need to be anything special. Just go out there and do what you've done. And listen, he's not going to do 32 for 37 again for 354. It's just not going to happen. But he can be methodical. He can be Brock Purdy-esque, which I know he's the MVP leading candidate. But my point stands that he is knowledgeable enough within his offense, Thom, that he can win games by just being serviceable. And you got enough weapons to allow him to be that. So the running game was the reason he was successful last night, too, by the way. Like, if you can't run the ball, those play-action bootlegs, all of those things that were allowing him to get guys wide open, they're not going to happen. So they're going to continue to try to run the ball. Can they? We'll find out. But the defense is if I were to be pessimistic, the defense has to be better for them to win football games.
No doubt about it. I mean, I don't know how long it takes. And look, he's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But when Christian Kirk went down, the one kid had not caught a pass all year long, right? Washington, the rookie. He has to take over for Kirk. He ends up having a great game. Good for that kid. He was the guy who made the touchdown catch in the end zone. First NFL touchdown after getting his first NFL catch a little bit earlier in the game. He played well. But, I mean, once Kirk went down, I just don't understand. And I'm not going to claim to know enough about it. Because I think Anarumo's an outstanding defensive coordinator. I just think he's short on talent. I don't think their linebackers are very good. They can't cover anybody. They can't. You say whatever you want. Logan Wilson leads in interceptions that's fine. Half of those are the quarterback's making a terrible mistake, and he threw it right to the guy. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. He's a good player. And Pratt, at times, is a good player. But, I mean, Evan Ingram, every time you turned around, that guy's catching a pass. But, I'm going to stay away from some of that. We're going to stay away from some of that for a while. But I'm with you on the defense. All right. The floor is yours, Casey. I mean, you have gone from the outhouse to the penthouse overnight. Please, young man, share some of the view from the penthouse.
Yeah, I thought Jake Browning had a fantastic game. Much to Trace's point, I do think a lot of it had to do with establishing the run, something that we have been asking for all year, where he ran it 30-plus times. I mean, what more could you have asked for? This is a balanced team. It was always built to be a balanced team, and they proved it last night.
Yep.
That was a team that had been one of the best at stopping the runs all season long, and we ran it down their throat.
Yep.
Chase Brown added a new dynamic to the run game, which made it more explosive. And then having T. Higgins really opened up the pass game more than people realized. I mean, we were getting one-on-one coverage with Jamar Chase. They had to stack the box to stop the run, leaving Jamar open on that touchdown. There's no reason as to why a defense should ever allow Jamar Chase to be one-on-one with anyone. And they proved it last night why you don't do that. I mean, the dude went 140 and a touchdown for 70 yards. I mean, excellent.
They were challenging Jake Brown right there, too, though.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
they were like, hey, let's see if Jake Browning's going to actually try to throw this ball.
Right.
And he did it, and Chase
And he
did
said
what
he
he always
didn't even
does.
see him catch it because he got hit. He made the comment after the game, never saw Chase catch the ball.
And what the thing, too, that I don't know if anyone listened to the press conferences afterwards, but one of the big things that he talked about in there was last week versus Pittsburgh, he identified two major flaws to his game. Staying in the pocket way too long, not making a decision, which caused the sacks. He kind of cleaned that up a little bit. There's still some mistakes. The second part was eye discipline, which he didn't know his protections. He didn't know whether or not a guy was hot or not, a la the TJ Watt sacks, stuff like that happened where his eyes were all over the field. This week, they focused on figuring out those protections, putting in heavy protections with Drew Sample out running
Most
back.
of the game.
Yeah, 6-man protection, 7-man protections. allowing him to run play action, which worked very well because of the run. And he played a fantastic game. I mean, it was very Brock Purdy-esque. And if that's the way it's going to be the rest of the year, man, the team is going to look really, really good. My hope is that they take this game and continue to try to emulate the exact same game plan for the rest of the season. Because what they showed me was that they imposed their will on a team that their strength was stopping the run,
That's
Thom.
right.
That was their strength.
That's
and we
right.
just dominated them.
You're spot on.